Whoa, 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 whoa. Uh-oh. We're going to have some technical difficulties here.
I wish y'all could see this highly professional setup that we have here.
Yep, like normal. Guys, it's Cameron here with Emerson Property Management. Every week, I bring you tools, tactics, strategies, lessons I've learned, things that have helped me build up a sizable rental portfolio in about 2 years, and now manage that portfolio. You probably noticed there is another character here.
You can see me?
Yeah. This is my buddy Matt. Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Matt Tranchard. I have a house buying company, Senna House Buyers. We primarily wholesale properties here in the Houston area. Been in business since 2012, probably done close to 1,000 houses. Flips, rentals, wholesales, got experience in kind of all that. I have a small portfolio of rental properties that Cameron manages. They do a bang-up job. Highly recommend them for property management services.
$20. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll catch you at that steak dinner tonight. No, for real, they do a great job. So,
I did not bring Matt on here to brag about us. I wanted to just have a chat, Matt. When you guys heard some of the earlier videos I've done, I mean, we've been doing this for about 5 years. Matt is actually the person that I reached out to mentor me. So Matt has been doing real estate way before I was. Do you want to talk about how you started, kind of the intro from accountant to property management company?
So let's see. I don't know why, I don't know when, just for a long time I've always been interested in real estate. Not from any kind of financial metric, I just always thought it was cool. I thought the flipping houses thing was cool, and I just was interested in it, right? So when I graduated from college, I got an accounting degree. I went to work for KPMG, one of the big 4 accounting firms in Houston, and absolutely hated my life. It was awful. I was in audit, and it was soul sucking.
Isn't it like a higher degree of maybe suicide as well, but alcoholism and all sorts in accounting?
Probably.
If you would have been there, you would have been a statistic.
Awful. And what's funny is I kind of have a natural knack for sales, and most of the people I knew and who knew me when they knew what I was in school for, they're like, "What?"
Personality didn't fit.
Just not the fit. And so about probably 4 or 5 months in to that job, I knew I had to get out. So I started looking. I found my way to Bigger Pockets. Started really diving in there and just learning about what was out there, but I didn't quite know what to do or where to go. At the time, I had a very close personal friend who was kind of a mentor of mine of sorts, not in any kind of official capacity. We knew each other from the triathlon community. And actually, funny story, first time I ever met him, we were going on a bike ride, and the friend who introduced us was like, "Hey, we got to go over to my buddy's house and meet him there. We're waiting. He's like signing papers for a rental property." And we literally were sitting on our bikes, and he signs a contract for a rental property with his agent on the hood of his car before we took off for the bike ride. And I thought that was so cool. And the entire ride, I was just like peppering him with questions about real estate and all that, and money and just everything. Fast forward, I was waiting tables. This was when I was still in college, so I'm kind of jumping around. But I was waiting tables, and this lady sat in my section, and I guess had a good experience, and asked if I wanted to get out of the restaurant business. I said sure. Got me an interview with a corporate job. I knew I was going to try to get a Big 4 accounting job, so I went. And my buddy, who I went on the bike ride with, ended up working there, and that's where our relationship really blossomed. So I had to walk by his office every day to go to work, and I would just stop, and we would just chat, and we'd talk about stuff, and we became close friends. Yeah. So fast forward, I'm hating life at the accounting firm. I'm spending as much time at the office as I can, like looking at Bigger Pockets and all that, just wasting time.
Been there.
And at the time, my buddy had a property management business. He left the corporate world to build his property management company, much like you.
Yep.
And he was like, "Look, you want to get you want to get into real estate. You hate your life. I need help. We're growing very quickly, and my books are a mess. Like, I need somebody to manage all that for me.
And you could probably say who that is. I don't know if you're...
No, yeah, for sure. His name's Pete Newbig. The company was Empire Industries. They're a big property management company here in Houston.
Yeah, they got bought
recently
out,
sold recently sold their company about, I guess, a year and a half ago. You know, so that was kind of cool over the years, seeing, you know, they were at 80 or 90 doors, I think, when I left, and
Jeez Louise.
I was one of like 2 employees at the time to the team they had at the end, and I think they had over probably 1,500 doors or so.
Yeah.
1,000 doors, 1,500 doors, something like that. I don't
Well,
know the
Steve,
number.
I know, who was another partner there.
Steve was his partner, yeah.
Is big on relationship development for Mind, or speaking for Mind. So
Right.
it's still, I mean, Mind's now a national company.
Yep.
So they added 1,500 or 1,000 doors to their portfolio now.
Correct.
You know.
Yeah, and
massive.
I think Mine's growth strategy is through acquisition of
Yes.
these smaller companies,
Yep.
so it was a good fit.
I didn't know you left when you had 80 or 90 properties.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
So the conversation went like this. I went to lunch with Pete and Steve. He was like, you hate your life. You want to get into real estate. We need help. I can pay you like half of what you're making. And
Sold.
I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And they were like, okay.
All because you liked the idea of real estate. Or
Because
more
I
so.
liked the idea of real estate and I hated my job that much. And so I quit and I went and joined ship with them. And so I worked there for about 2 years, but I was still doing accounting,
Yeah.
right? And so I wasn't too happy. And I was still on Bigger Pockets all the time, looking at stuff. Wasn't making a ton of money, obviously. And a guy I went to high school with, him and his dad had started the company that I'm now the owner of, and I saw him on Bigger Pockets. He was very active, and I recognized him from high school, reached out. I'm like, hey man, it looks like you and your dad are doing some cool stuff. Like, I'd love to help in any way I can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that looks like, but I'll work, I'll put money up, like, whatever. And he's like, I mean, we don't do bandit signs. I'm like, bro, I'll do bandit signs. I don't care. And so I bought the bandit signs. I wrote them up. I went out in the middle of the night. I put them down. And the agreement was, look, I'll do all this and I'll cover the cost of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just show me what to do and I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll split any deals we get.
Yeah.
And they were like, great. So put the bandit signs out, talked through like a script and all that kind of stuff. And I remember the first phone call that I got that guy under contract, and we sold it, but we couldn't get clear title. So it didn't close, but we found another one, sold that one to the same buyer. But I remember that the first call that I ever got off a bandit sign, I got that guy under contract.
That does not happen. That has to be like
That
1 in a
does not
million or
happen.
100 million.
Part of that was I was probably lucky, you know.
Because sometimes better be lucky than good.
Absolutely. And so I was hooked.
Yeah.
And so we did like 2 or 3 deals together where I was still working at Empire, kind of doing that on the side. And me and my former business partner, we clicked and we were working really well together. And we fed off of each other. And he's like, dude, why don't you just come join us? And so I did. So I left the property management company and became an employee at my buddy and his dad's company as an acquisitions guy, and very quickly just took on more and more responsibility. You know, within a few months, I think I'm like helping write processes and just like, and you know, I've told this to a number of people. When I joined them, it was strictly in a employer-employee capacity. There was no talk about, hey man, if you absolutely kill it, like you can get equity in the company one day or have the opportunity to buy in or anything like that. But in my mind, when I went, I'm like, I am going to crush this job so much that they just won't have a choice but to give me equity.
And do you think they would have been as receptive if you would have taken it the reverse? Hey guys,
Absolutely.
I'll bust my ass,
They'd have been like,
and then I
"Get
want
the
a
hell outta here."
third of the company.
No,
Yeah.
they would have been like, get out of here.
Would that even work? I mean, in any capacity, if somebody came up and said that to you now?
Absolutely not.
Nobody. So that is one thing
And
to
I
point
never,
out.
yeah, I never asked.
Big.
It never came up. When I became a partner, it was, this is what you've earned.
And that, I think that's a big thing. You know, I know I've done another video, and there's many videos, blog posts on mentorship or looking for a mentor, and a lot of people ask questions like that, but it's not. You go out and add value first. That's always the biggest piece. You go out, you add a bunch of value, and then depending upon where that goes, maybe it does go really well. Then look. I mean, you got to a company that now you own 100% today.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
Matt going and adding value with no expectations up front was now, I mean, you're the big dog now, man.
I guess that's a good and a bad thing sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went, I got some equity, I bought additional equity on top of that.
Mhm.
And now today, I'm the sole owner. So,
And at the time of this recording, this is the end of 2020, and you became official owner full 100% earlier this year, right? In 2020?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 2020.
Technically January 1st of this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
January 1st. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, Matt, again, when I first started, Matt,
I was a sales guy when we first met you.
you were the sales guy.
Yeah.
I walked in and I was going to all these networking events. Again, people talk about what you can do. It's always back to the basics. It's never changed.
It
has
doesn't.
It doesn't. I mean, now it's virtual networking and a little limitations on it. But I went out. I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Mhm.
I was trying to find a way to get into real estate. I knew the math, engineering background. I knew the numbers worked.
Yep.
And I'm like, but how the hell do these guys find these deals? And that's where I started going networking events and found out Matt's company had a very solid reputation. And this was in 2015.
Yeah.
So this was, you already had been doing,
there. So I had been there for about a year and a half at that point.
and Matt had already been doing a lot of ethical wholesaling, which I'm sure a lot of you probably know that that's few and far between. So Matt, I found out about Matt's company. I went in and started asking. You guys probably heard this story before, but asking, what can I do? Similar to what you did. Well, Cameron, you have a full-time job. There's nothing you can do to help. I don't have any use for you.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd go get you guys coffee. I'd do whatever. We sat down. We had a meeting.
Yep.
Matt was in and out, taking calls all the time. I remember that. And went and added value. And
Yeah.
then got into their mentorship program. And Matt taught me everything I know about buying houses and how to find a good deal. So, I don't do a lot of interviews. That's something we want to get into and do more of. But I think Matt, and he knows this, but I don't talk about him a lot on some of the videos. I talk about his company, but he's kind of faceless. So I wanted to introduce you guys to Matt and let you know that he is the foundation of why I believe why I was able to find what an actual deal looks like. Because his company has been buying them. You said thousands probably now.
Probably about 1,000.
1,000
years. Yeah.
Okay, so he's bought personally over 1,000 properties. You think?
Close
Ish.
to, yeah.
Yeah. So Matt really knows. If you guys, I've had questions to me before about how to find a deal, what a deal looks like. We can tell you that, but Matt's company specializes in finding off-market properties. Mm-hmm. And this isn't just a sales pitch for you, but this is legitimately.
Well, that's the nature of our business.
It is,
Yeah.
and some of you probably watching this have asked me about finding deals, and I will tell you that Matt's the only ethical wholesaler, the only wholesaler in this city that I recommend and trust. I bought probably 4 or 5 houses from you, and we had one go south, Connervale. We had the appraisal come in low.
Oh, that's right.
And Matt made it. I mean, this is when we were still feeling each other out, mentorship program. How do I fill this contract out? All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And Matt made it right. The appraisal came in low. We adjusted things and worked it out. So I knew he was in it for the long haul. So that's your 20-minute sales pitch for you. But so to get behind that, one of the other things, again, it's at the time of this recording, it's the end of 2020. January's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So and Matt doesn't know what I want to talk about. I just figured we'd sit down and see kind of where this took us. But people are setting goals for next quarter, next year.
Yeah.
Right now. Right? There's a lot of people who are finally getting fed up with their jobs, or maybe things have changed for them in the coronavirus world, or whether they got laid off or have to do things they don't like to do anymore, and they're wanting to buy real estate. So I was just thinking maybe we could talk about some things that people who want to invest in real estate, maybe mistakes they make, or maybe the good or bad things.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know if something comes to mind specifically, but just when people are setting their goals, you don't want to set it so far out there that it's not achievable, and you'll never actually drive to do it because it's so pie in the sky. Mm-hmm. But what do you think about goal setting for people who are newer to real estate, or maybe have one deal under their belt? What's a good 2021 goal? And I'm sure a lot of this will be applicable if you're listening to this at a later time. But
well, I think the first thing is, I'm big on designing your life, right? And so for me, it's more about like what kind of life do I want to live on a realistic day-to-day basis, right? And like frankly, before I had a kid, I'm like, let's take over the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'll move to Atlanta and open an office there and live there for 6 months. Like, I don't care. Like, that's just like how I was. And a lot of that changed when I had a kid. But like I said, I'm big on designing my life, right?
Yeah.
If I don't wake up on a Tuesday and not do anything that day, then that's what I want to do, right? As opposed to if I want to work till 9 o'clock that night at the office, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm big on having that kind of time freedom. And so, but that's, again, by design, right? I'm not the entrepreneur out here who likes to post on Facebook about how many hours I put in, because that's not what I want to do.
Not a Gary Vee.
Right? Well, I worked a corporate job where I put a whole bunch of hours in, and guess what? I hated my life.
Yeah.
And so I left that, and I'm like, I will find a way to make money and not do that. And to me, it's more important to be at home. To me, it's more important to pick my kid up from school. To me, it's more important to go to my nephew's basketball game, right? It's not about how many hours I can put in a week. That does not impress me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Frankly, the guys who brag about it, I almost am impressed less and respect them less.
I agree.
And
why do in 100 hours what you can do in 20? I mean, why? Why would you put in 100 hours of work a week? To me, it's inefficient. I remember
it's very inefficient.
In corporate America, it was all just filling the day.
Believe me, I've worked 18-hour days at the corporate job, and I promise you, after 12, nothing got done.
Yeah.
We're like stacking 5-hour energy bottles, and like, it was stupid, you know? Yeah. So when it comes to setting goals for the year, I always start with like kind of what I want to happen, right? And so,
is that like family events, like
whatever it is I want to,
like big Ironmans?
I'll share with you some of mine for this coming year.
Okay,
right?
Perfect.
I used to be pretty competitive in triathlons. I've gotten away from that. Put some pounds on, that dad bod, and so I want to lose. I have a goal to lose weight, and how many times I exercise a week next year. Okay, right? And then I associate that with a some kind of celebration. I have a mentor who's big because he tells me I don't celebrate my wins enough. So that's one thing I want to start doing. I want to get my pilot's license. I'm going to do that next year. We talked about that the other day.
Yes, we all want Matt to get his pilot license.
Because down the road, I want to own my own plane. So I can, one thing that really solidified that for me was I just went to go visit my grandparents this weekend in Louisiana. We got stuck in traffic. It was a 5-hour drive. I don't see them enough. Yeah. Right? I don't see them enough.
Aging or elderly.
Correct.
They're not,
If I'm a pilot, and I've just always wanted to get my license, but two, if I can just fly there, it's a 40-minute flight. I could wake up and leave at lunch, get the team kicked off at work, fly over there, have dinner with them, fly home, and I could do that over and over again. Yep. And to me, that is more important than money or anything like that, right? Yeah. So that's a couple of my goals for next year. Obviously, I have financial goals for my business and things like that.
And you're more so. This is always a conundrum too. And I haven't set my goals for the year, so I don't know this. I can't give you any of mine. But it's always one of those things that I think is perplexing or confusing for people. Is I'm going to go for the own my freedom, but when you start out, how much freedom did you have when you were wholesaling? When you started with the company?
It was a grind.
Yeah.
So it still is sometimes to this day. Yeah. Right? But for the most part, it's not anymore.
But you can take off and go pick up your son or take him to
absolutely
swim or go over and take off on a Thursday, no questions asked, and go out and see the grandparents. So I think that is a big thing. You want to anchor your goals for whatever you're trying to do. You don't want to go right and realize that you want to go left at the end of the day. Yeah. But it's not, you can't do nothing when you start.
No.
You cannot have, honestly, I think you can't have time freedom when you start.
You can't.
Because you have to put in as much as I don't like the Gary Vee grind all the time.
That doesn't mean you have to spend 100 hours a week at it.
Exactly.
But you have to spend dedicated time to it. So if you're working full time and you want to learn about it, well, that means you're either going to have to work less, which may mean make less money, or you're going to have to put the time in after work.
Correct.
Which means then you will be burning some hours, right? But that's what you have to do. And, I guess for anybody who's in that position of, I hate my job, look, I could not have done what I did without my wife. I could not have done that.
Yeah.
She's worked this whole time. We were dating. We weren't even engaged yet when I'm like, hey, I'm quitting my job and taking a 50% pay cut. So like, God bless her for riding with me through that.
Yep.
But she also knew like how miserable I was. And I told, she could probably see it in my eyes of like, look, like, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, whatever that means.
Hell or high water.
Hell or, like, if the real estate thing is taking a while and I got to get a second job, I'm going to get a job. Like,
I think that's a big thing too. I think a lot of people, I heard this on a Bigger Pockets podcast, but guy got fired and went over and started working at Taco Bell.
yeah.
And a lot of people probably think that's beneath them, but we've talked about this before. Even, I recently quit my job this year, and that was one thing I talked about. If everything goes to hell in a haybasket, I'm healthy. I can go out and get a job.
Yep.
And it's not beneath me to go do whatever it takes to have enough money to provide.
I'll tell you this story. Early on, wasn't making a lot of money. Didn't have insurance because we weren't married yet.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was all worried about what happens if you get sick and you don't have insurance. And so I called the local Starbucks that I would go to all the time because I worked at Starbucks in college.
Yeah.
And I was seeing if I could get a job and just open. So I would open at 4, work till like 7, and then go to my real estate job. Just so I could get the
Just
insurance
the benefits,
and a
yeah.
little bit of extra cheddar on the side, right?
Yeah.
They were like, no, we don't have any. We need somebody who can commit to more hours. And so it didn't work out, but like you said.
Well, and you didn't need it. You didn't have to. The real estate thing eventually took off.
Correct.
But you had backup plans.
Yeah. And even then, it's like, look, like, I don't mind working.
Yeah.
Now, I will try to avoid it now,
Mhm.
right? But when push comes to shove, like, I don't know. It's just always been like that. I've had a job since I was 14.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable if I'm not working.
Well, and I don't think, again, I don't like the grind 100 hours a week. However, I put in 100 hours a week, and I'm sure you put in plenty of 100-hour
Yeah.
weeks when you had to learn the craft.
Yes.
Because you've got people like Matt. You guys are competing. Let's just say you're out there trying to buy a house. You're competing with somebody like Matt that's got, the 10,000 hour rule he's surpassed probably 2 or 3 times over.
Yeah.
He's been studying this, doing deals, and to be able to compete with Matt, you've got to put in, if you're starting at 0 and he's starting at 1,000 deals already, you've got to get somewhere in between that
Yeah.
to even have a chance to compete and buy that house. So you've got to put in the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the exact same thing I did, Matt, when I was at BP and I'd go to work at 5. Thankfully, I wasn't, directly operations tied. So I asked, when can I go in? They said, whatever, just put in your 40
your
hours a
hours
week.
in.
Yeah. So I go in at 5 and I'd leave at 3.
Yep.
And from 3 to 9 to 10 o'clock, I grinded on real estate.
That's what Pete did with Empire.
Yeah.
He'd go in very early at his corporate job. He'd leave early. He would get his workouts in, and he would build Empire.
And that I think, I would say that's probably, I heard some statistic.
People
and it
are
was like,
unwilling to do that.
They are. And it was like 30 or 40%, you're 30 or 40% more likely to succeed in your business if you're holding a job while you're doing it.
So you mentioned earlier about people watching that are, I'm tired of my job, I want to leave my job. Don't do what I did. That was stupid. But
you had the plan, but you were willing, well, one, you had
I was
your
willing
girlfriend
to do
or...
I was willing to do anything.
Yeah, and wife now,
Yeah.
who for some support or
Yeah.
to lean on if you needed to. And you were willing to do what it took. But
And to be fair, because
What?
I'll probably get yelled at for mentioning this. So I got an accounting degree.
Mhm.
Part of the agreement with me leaving and jumping into the real estate thing was I had to get my CPA license.
Oof.
And I said, yeah, no problem. And I didn't do it. And I heard about that for a long time. I'll probably still hear
just
about that.
to cover your rear
Just
end.
for a safety net.
Yeah.
For the safety net. And I told her, I'm like, look, I know I said that, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but like, and I know you want the safety net, but I could not go back to that.
Yeah.
Like,
Once you got the taste, it was game over.
not just that, like, and now I've realized now that I've kind of matured a little bit in my career, like, I know that if I did have to go back and get a job, I'd get a sales job. That's where my skill set lies.
100%.
And I would make
Not
more
crunching,
money
yeah.
anyways. Like, I do not need to be sitting in a cubicle crunching numbers. You don't need me doing that. You need me selling something.
Yeah, you don't have the personality of
No.
a bean counter.
And so if I did get a job, I would go find some kind of job where I could make a sale, do a sale.
Where you could have some
Yep.
upside commission or
Yep.
control your income.
Yep. So the people watching who are thinking about wanting to get out of
Yes.
the job, they wanting to get a real estate, frankly, they need to do what you did.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, especially if you're looking at buying rental properties, there is nothing more attractive to a lender than someone who has a steady paying job. There's a good example of this is my rental portfolio versus Cameron's rental portfolio.
Yes.
I was a self-employed individual buying rental properties, and the banks hated me. So if you look at my rental properties as far as what I paid for and what they needed to be fixed up and what they're worth for, I bought them at better deals. I bought them at
100%.
deeper discounts.
Yes.
But Cameron had a W-2 job. He had the proper financing lined up, so his actually made more money than mine do on a per deal, month by month basis because his financing is so much more attractive.
I was just talking with somebody who's at BP today who's talking about leaving, and that's the exact same thing I said. You guys have to find your competitive advantage before you just go out on a whim and
Yeah.
do it. You know, a lot of Instagram influencers
Listen,
and these
you can
balls.
you can absolutely do it, but you're making it much harder on yourself.
You can, but I don't want anybody. I think if you're watching this or you follow Emerson, you don't see. There's no flashiness. We're not
No.
showing off private jets and fake and all that fake shit. You know,
Yeah.
no fancy watches or anything like that. And but this is what it really takes. And I said this. I remember saying this when I first started recording the videos. Is you guys, you're going to see the progression. And if you look at just from when I was recording to what I was doing and putting in the grind, I didn't know nearly as much as I know now, but the stuff's starting to come to fruition. I quit my job, and now I'm making more money doing not as much work, not as much physical work as I was when I was working at BP.
Yeah.
When I had a 6-figure job. So it was like, I'm making more money now just on paper
Yeah.
from not having to lift a finger.
Yeah.
And
What did you shared this with me? I know you can't name names, obviously, but when you were leaving, people said things to you
oh, yeah.
when you were leaving.
Hold that thought because I
Okay.
want to say the girl that reached out who's talking about leaving BP, the competitive advantage thing, I just want to capitalize
yeah,
on it because
yeah.
I that is so important. And the reason I said that is, and Matt and I have a very similar portfolio, but I have the 3 to 3.5% financing on a lot of my stuff.
Yeah.
You're
You're
at
like
what?
7.2.
Yeah, and 30-year average, the interest rate is 7%.
Yeah.
So
you do that over $1 million worth of debt. That's a big number every month.
it doesn't look that bad when you have a $50,000-$70,000 mortgage, but when you have a $500,000 or $700,000
Yeah.
mortgage, it looks substantial. So one of the conversations I just had with her was, make sure you leverage your competitive advantage. And my competitive advantage, like you said, was the cheap financing. So
Yeah.
I could go out and I looked like such a good borrower. I was going to private money lenders, but it was my competitive advantage. So that's what I leveraged. Matt had a little bit different competitive advantage.
I was at the front line. I was able to get deals at cheaper discounts.
Exactly.
So I could afford to pay a little bit higher interest rate.
Exactly. So you can't have it all. And I think that is one big thing when you try to go out and, you know, real estate, everybody paints the rosy picture like it's great. It is fantastic when you get it down. It's fantastic. But it's not all
hard.
sunshine and rainbows.
It's hard.
It is not all sunshine
You're
and
going to
rainbows.
take some licks. Look,
Yeah.
I've taken... Whew.
I mean, you
Yeah.
have deals that lose money.
Absolutely.
I mean, Matt has bought way more houses than I'll probably ever look at, and he still has one that comes up every now and then. I mean, your experience, you know exactly, you have your contractors, you know the area, and still every now and then you get a dud.
Yeah,
It just happens.
it does.
So that's kind of ties into the second point I want to talk about. When you're setting your goals, and I'll come back to the question about people leaving BP, you guys want to protect the downside. That is something that I learned at BP that I really took a lot in, because you have $1 billion facility offshore, and why do I have to wear safety glasses when I walk outside? Why do I have to do that? Because the risk of shutting down the plant or shutting it down is not worth the little inconvenience. So when you guys are looking at buying deals and looking at investing in rental properties or maybe doing some wholesales or some flips, make sure that you're protecting the downside. What is my exit strategy? Is it, okay, I want to do it buy and hold, but can I sell it? Can I own or finance it? What are my strategies? How can I limit the downside? You take on a private money lender. I definitely don't recommend, I've heard so many people talk about I got $250,000, whether it's from a sale of something or whatever, or inheritance, and they want to go buy it in one deal. And I'm like,
no,
do not do that.
No,
you're risking
not.
Risk somebody else's money.
Yeah.
I mean, really, risk a private money lender's money. Don't risk your money, and even if you don't make as much,
then pay cash and refi out.
Yes.
Like,
but
that's fine if you want to do that. You want to buy one for $100, put $50 into it, pay all cash for it. Absolutely, go ahead and do that. Get back out of it, but like you said, have that multiple exit strategies.
And just limit your downside risk, especially when you're starting, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think?
And look, black swan events happen all the time, right?
Well,
and
we're in one.
The nature of a black. This is what I got in that Facebook argument with.
Yes.
I actually converted. Cameron is proof. Cameron is proof.
He won a Facebook argument. There was somebody converted on a Facebook argument.
He literally said, "Man, I really didn't think of it that way." And you're right. And I was like, "Did anybody see this?" Yeah. I had to show Cameron. I'm like, somebody has to see that this is proof.
It was literally the one time ever.
And it was around the COVID stuff.
But it was a valid point. So kind of talk through that.
Yeah. Okay. So it was an article right when COVID popped out. It was an article. This Airbnb owner who probably had multiple buildings that she Airbnb'd, so short-term rentals, and she's losing, 1 month of rent, and she's going to go bankrupt because she's not getting the 1 month of rent because everything's shut down. And when you're an Airbnb host, you're highly dependent on travel and vacation rentals and things like that.
Yes.
When there's a travel ban, guess what you're not getting? Any business.
Well, and one thing, just one side note, when you buy a property, we buy it, or we're selling. When you sell a property to a long-term buy and hold investor, and when I'm buying property, you're buying it for the long-term rental.
Oh yeah.
These people are paying 2 or 3 times what it is, especially in destination cities like, California, Nashville.
Which they have the potential to bring in significantly more money.
Because a good rental here, I mean, in Houston,
$1,500.
You're making, which is what? That's $50 a day.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Short term, you can get $120 a night, something
Boom.
like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you can make so much more, and so these people were paying above what the just long-term 12-month financing or 12-month rent income would pay. So they were paying 2 or 3 times that, and then
so this
people
lady, it was this article, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, and it was this big sob story about how this lady, 1 month goes by that she didn't get rent, and so she's like, her whole financial life is ruined. And all these people are talking about how, it's everybody else's fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's everybody else's fault. And I made a comment about, no, it sounds like she's a poor business manager is what it sounds like.
Yeah, 1 month of cash flow, that's brilliant.
If you don't have 1 month, if you can't survive 1 month of cash flow, you're not running your business properly.
Personally and in your business.
Correct. This is like basic finance 101, financial management, right? And so I say this and I'm just getting attacked, right? Like, how could you prepare for this? You can't prepare for this, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, no shit, you can't prepare for this.
Yes.
It's a black swan event. The nature of it is that you don't know when, how long, how devastating. You don't know.
Exactly.
And so you prepare for the unknown. So you don't spend all your money. You hold money in savings so that if some crazy event came in your Airbnb business that you don't get rent for 6 months, you're not going to not survive. And if you can't make 1 month, then it's really poor.
I was just about to say, a black swan event is not 1 month of losing your money.
No.
I mean, that could be just a permit doesn't come back.
That could be a bad review.
Yeah. I mean, think about how many times you've got delayed 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. I mean, that could be so many things that it wasn't COVID that was going to drive that lady into a crisis.
She was going to go down
one way or another, because that's preposterous.
And look, even in there, I wish that lady well. I hope she makes it through and survives and it doesn't ruin her.
Yeah.
But don't tell me you can't prepare for that.
No shit.
One guy argued with me. He's like, are you kidding? Nobody holds cash. Look, you really think the shareholders of Apple are going to be okay with them holding cash? And I told him, why don't you just go ahead, here's the link to their latest financial report, and why don't you let me know how much cash they have in their bank right now?
And it was like $200 billion or something?
Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's actually exactly what they do. And they're rewarded handsomely for running their business properly. So, I don't know how we got on that topic. We said black swan. And
we were talking about downside risk and how you don't want to. So there's another thing. When you guys go out and want to buy a rental property and you have $20,000 to invest, don't have your $20,000 as your $20,000 down payment. and put that
Yeah.
all in.
No.
You got to have, because especially when you're new, your margin of error is
higher.
Much
higher.
way larger. And then over time, you get more and more narrow. After you've done hundreds of deals, even if you haven't done hundreds of deals,
It doesn't even take that much.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. I mean, a couple years, and you understand about what flooring costs, about what siding costs, about what paint costs, about what carpet costs.
There's a very low risk of me saying a house needs 20 grand worth of work and it needing 60. There's a very high risk of someone who's never paid a contractor, never walked their property, never gotten a scope of work put together.
Yep.
There's a very high risk of something like that happening.
Well, and so
I get this all the time when people send us deals. They're new, they want to wholesale, they don't have a buyer's list, they want to JV with us and us with the deal, which we do all the time.
Yeah.
But I underwrite it because I'm not going to put crap out to
Yeah.
my people. I have a reputation, right?
100%.
And so when it comes through, they're like, yeah, it just needs a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I go through, I'm like, dude, this thing needs $65,000 worth of work.
And they thought it was 25.
And they're like, no, I thought it needed 15. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm at 25 before I go inside the house.
Yeah.
You know? Like, the roof isn't leaking. I'm like, no, but it's 22 years old, dude.
And that's another good point with, setting your new goals for the new year, not being fairly new to real estate is I would never advise people to go out and take on a massive rehab.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
And especially, people
do
talk about moving walls and
No.
doing this or doing high-end stuff. Oh, the margin, you can make a couple $100,000.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, and interest, we talk about our 7% interest on
Listen.
a couple $100,000.
I could tell you.
That's got a soft spot for you.
You know.
Yeah.
I can tell some war stories about experienced people going in. We're thinking we're going to make 150 grand. Next thing you know, we're losing 70 or 80 or whatever it is because stuff you don't plan for pops up. Things you thought you had dialed in, you really didn't have dialed in.
So the worst one you did, that high-end one, was that probably the one that stung the most?
Yeah.
Just for them, what did you think you were going to make?
Okay.
Well, hold on. When you bought that, how many houses had you already done? Just so people know your experience level before you started.
Company had been in business for probably 3.5 years. We had probably bought 200, flipped 70 or so.
That's what I laugh at that because these
Yeah.
people are trying to do that
Yeah.
and they haven't done one deal.
Yeah.
So, okay, you had 70 flips under your belt and you thought you were going to make what? And what did you end up losing?
Okay, so we bought it for 430. We bought it for 430. I think the plan was to put 150. So you're all in at what's that? 580. Say with that financing and holding on something like that, say another 50 grand. Just say it.
Yeah.
So that's what 580, 50, 6.
You're getting
Just
above
call
my pay
it.
grade.
Just call it 650.
Okay,
Right.
all in.
We thought it was, at the time it was a one-time flood. We thought it was probably worth about 850, so we probably were going to target an 800 sales price, maybe sell 750 to 800, something like that.
Yeah.
So probably make about 150 grand going into it. It flooded about 60% of the way through the rehab. FEMA took 9 months to get us our flood insurance money through a loophole that we had to fight. And so it just sat. We had private money at whatever, 12% or whatever it was on
$500,000.
on 430 plus 150, so almost 600,000. So do the math on how much that costs in 9 months. Well, now it's also a two-time flood. So now what we thought we would sell for 800, 750, we're thinking 600, 650 maybe.
These
right?
were the tax day floods or whatever? Yeah.
So we finally get the FEMA money. We finish the rehab. We sell it for, I forget, 600, 625, something like that. So we're taking a loss. And
And it was what, a year and a half of work?
yeah, at this point, we're about a year and a half, 2 years in. Sell the house. We're a week from closing, and Harvey hits. House floods again. And so yeah, by that point, like nobody wanted to touch that area.
And look at this. So let's just reiterate that. An experienced investor who has 70 flips under their belt buys a deal that they think they have 150,000 in margin
An upside.
in upside, in profits, and ends up walking away losing money on the deal. Now, I'm not here to pick on Matt, but that's why
It
you have some
happens.
cash reserves.
It happens.
And I did something as a rental, you guys will see in Houston, if you guys have analyzed property,
It's hard to have a loss like that on a rental property.
It is, and I don't see a lot of rentals that cash flow above 300, 350. It's hard. It's harder. And especially with prices being driven up like they have with the low interest rate environment we're in. But I thought the ARV on this thing was like I think it was like 280, almost 300,000, and it ended up coming in at 230.
Oof.
Thankfully, I had some cash set aside because I was doing all these refis.
Yeah.
So I could bite it on that one. It made my cash flow numbers look fantastic because now
the debt's so low.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the debt was low, and I'm still getting $2,300 a month.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. But I had done.
If you didn't have the cash,
I probably had 10 properties under my belt by that time
Yeah.
too. So I was a rental property owner that had 10 properties under his belt and still made a mistake like that. So when you're doing the BRRRR stuff too, just mitigate the downside. Make sure before you go out and stick your neck out again. I think, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but do you think entrepreneurs are risky? Because people talk about like, go out and take risk.
I mean, yes, you do have to take a risk, right? For me, I mean, jumping ship, taking a pay cut, that was a risk. You know, everybody at the accounting firm thought I was stupid because in the accounting world, like the way to the top is you go Big Four for a handful of years, and you get a nice cushy accounting job at corporate. Mm-hmm. But if you leave too early, then nobody in corporate wants to hire you, right? Yeah. And so everybody thought I was committing career suicide, and I'm like, dude, I don't care.
There's no career in accounting.
Yeah, I'm taking it out back. Like I want to end this career.
Yeah.
And that was a risk, and I did not make good. Like I'm watching the guys I'm in the accounting firm. They're making significantly more money than I am for year after year after year after year. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, I've probably passed them now, but. But there was a lot of years I'm watching all these guys who are my age, who are older than, or who are younger than me, because they took the road. But what I did have was my time, right? And to me, that was significantly more important than whatever it would make. And I was seeing the traction.
Hold on, did you have a lot of student loans coming out?
Yeah.
So you, even with all that coming in, you still had debt over your head?
I think I graduated with like $32,000 in student loans.
Okay, so yeah, it's not like Matt just had enough,
and I had no cash.
Yeah, and not started from a blank slate.
Yeah, no, I had nothing. Yeah. Those bandit signs that I paid for, I put those on credit cards.
But they paid off.
I was making like $28,000 at the
Starbucks?
No, at Empire.
Oh,
I wasn't making anything, So I was living off of that, putting the bandit sign stuff on the credit cards. I made like $10,000 on that first deal, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Right.
I made what I make in 3 or 4 months of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, yes, you do need to take risk. Risk is not just financial risk, though. Risk is like the risk of missing out on things, right? You got to miss out on. We were talking about this last night. You got to miss out on some stuff every now and then.
Well, but here's the other counter argument to that, or kind of what people think it's risky to leave a job. To me, the more, and it is for some people. If I had a family of 4 and had a bunch of house feed and had 100,000 loans and all this stuff, but I think it's risky to stay at a job for 30 years hoping that they keep feeding you every year and giving you your 3% raises, you get your bonus, and then every 5 to 10 years you get a little promotion that makes you a little more money, and at the end of the year they give you, or at the end of 40 decades, you get 5 weeks vacation, and you spend 40 hours a week?
2 direct stories to that. My wife, who she worked at the same corporate job since she left college, and she was a rock star at that place. She was like the young up-and-comer. She was paid more and ranked higher than anybody else her age. All of her peers at work were all 10 plus years older than her, right? She's a rock star. Filed bankruptcy. So she's killing it. She's an absolute rock star, top of her class, like all the highest
Great
ratings, making good money.
Yep.
Company files bankruptcy.
And how long was she there?
She was there for 12 years.
12 years.
Second story.
Okay.
My stepfather never went to college. Out of high school when he was 17, he started working in the oil and gas field. Started working for Cameron on a rig.
Not me, the company Cameron.
Yeah, the company. They got bought by Schlumberger. So worked on the rig forever. Then he worked at the shops. So they manufacture parts.
Yep.
So worked at the shop forever, then he ran the shop, then he started doing sales, then he started doing sales at corporate. He worked there for 34 and a half years.
Oh my.
And what was it? Was it 2015? The last kind of downturn?
The bad one was 2015.
When
that was when it went down below 30 or like in
correct.
the 20s. Yeah.
When that happened, he got laid off.
And wasn't it
So
with his truck?
His car.
Oof.
So he's my stepdad, right? So my mom married him. I was in my teens, maybe 10 years old or something. They've been married for 25 years, okay? As long as I've known him, he's had a company car, okay? The dude worked there for 34 and a half years. When he got laid off, they made his boss drive him home and take the car back. The dude didn't even have a car because he had a company car, and he had for 20 years. Like, he had no point in buying a car, right? And he's puts 34 and a half years. He got a 6-month severance, and they drove him home to take the car back. They wouldn't even give the dude, like,
a
day to go find something to buy for himself.
And that's... So
that
is
risky.
Yes. And that...
To me.
No, and I agree with you because that's why I stayed employed and I continued to buy. So the day of reckoning comes, or either, in 2020, I thankfully was able to get out at a good time and get paid to leave, take a nice severance package to leave. But I could have been married with kids, working 20, 30 years in one specialty job, and relying only on my income instead of building a rental portfolio, building a portfolio of stocks and good investments, so that when that time did come, I just said, piss on this.
Yeah.
I don't need this anymore.
Right.
There's so much change in here. Great company, whatever, not the direction I want to go. I have my freedom of choice to be able to say no more. So, I think a lot of people don't weigh that enough because
they don't think it'll ever happen to them.
Well, and what I think too is some people
When it happens to people every day.
Every single day they
Think
you
about
are a number.
Listen, think about all the people who were working at successful businesses in February.
It's a valid point at the start of the coronavirus.
And they did nothing wrong. Frankly, most of those companies did nothing wrong.
Think about.
And they just got absolutely crushed by something they had no control over, and all of those employees, who probably were very good employees, they had to get let go.
Think about Enron.
Yeah.
A company that on paper was making fortunes.
Yeah.
And people's retirements were wiped out, everything.
Oh, that was bad.
One thing, and this kind of, I'm passionate about this, as I'm sure you can probably tell, because I remember my dad telling me a long, long time ago, I wasn't 10, 12 years old. I wasn't very old at all. He told me, and this is probably a little screwed up that you tell a 10 or 12-year-old this, but...
Knowing your dad, I wouldn't be surprised.
And he said, nobody's going to take care of you. Not your mom and I are, the government, a job, nobody. You need to take care of yourself. Yeah, and that was, but I think that even goes back to, it goes back to why we're successful in what we do. And we've got a long way to go. We've got big goals and things to achieve, but why we've even achieved this much so far, because we take responsibility for being a good salesperson or being good at property management or whatever we do. We are willing to put in the hours to say we've earned the right to have what we have. Yeah. And if it's not, we'll keep working to get where we're trying to go.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't mind. Listen, if you're going to go the entrepreneur, self-employed journey, people talk about this, but it's not real to a lot of people. And you're going to take some licks.
Whew.
And
tell me about it.
You're going to go where you feel like you're on top of this happened to us. You're going to feel like you're on top of the world, you're killing it, you're making all the money in the world, and something happens, you make a poor decision, you don't keep your eye on the ball, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden you're in a pinch. And it's real hard, and it's real dark, and it's real bleak.
And it's lonely.
And it's very lonely. All the people who were kissing your ass because you were killing it and making it, most of them are not around to help with that.
Yep.
And when that time comes, that's what really separates the one who are going to be around long term.
Well, and everybody has struggles, personally and professionally and business-wise. We all do. But when you take responsibility for it, I think this is a big differentiator I see in successful people anyways. Even people that want me to mentor or people, I'm sure, tell me if I'm wrong here or you see something different, but they take responsibility. If they're not at the income level they want, they don't cry and quit. They either go find something else to do to add more value or create their own economy via... we do real estate because we love it. It's the best investments you can make in our opinion. But we take responsibility for our
Yeah.
income, our futures. Like you talk about your time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing too to think about when you're setting your goals and stuff is to reach whatever you want to do next year. Make sure that you're taking responsibility for hitting that. You're not relying on somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're not setting a goal saying, I hope Matt brings me 50 rental properties next
Yeah.
year. That's never. I mean,
No.
even if Matt and I have a great relationship, and even then, that would be a poor goal.
Yeah.
That would be very poor.
Because it's all dependent on me.
I'm expecting to kick back here and
Yeah.
Matt bring me 50 deals. I mean, let's be real here.
Yeah. And a lot of people have that attitude, right?
We're in that kind of, millennial type deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they really do. And I'll tell you this, if you're one of the people who is sitting around and you're like, man, my only goal is just to get the hell out of this job, right? One, you should probably put a plan in place for that.
Yeah.
Because if you're at that point, then I can only imagine how it's affecting other ways that you might not even notice in the rest of your life,
Yeah.
right? Like when I was that miserable, I was a terrible boyfriend, and we got engaged when I was at the accounting firm, but I was a terrible fiance because I was so stressed out and I was so miserable,
And didn't even realize it.
Didn't even
until you got on
realize
the other
it.
side.
Didn't even realize it. I was all poor me. And so the other thing is just quitting your job is not a goal, right?
It's a good point.
It's not a goal. And if it is, and that's all you can think of, that's okay. Because there's time, everybody goes through seasons, right? Where you're just so fed up, you don't really even know what you want anymore, right? And I've been there. And that's a really dark place to be too, at least for me. Like when you get to that kind of apathetic spot, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And that takes some real sitting down, thinking, soul searching. And that's when it's like, okay, if money was off the table, won the lottery, you got $300 million in the bank, right? What do you want your life to look like?
Yep.
What does it look like?
So what's funny, sorry to interject here, Matt and I did this little experiment, and Matt was saying, we were driving home, I think we went to your brother's or something.
What we're doing, yeah.
And Matt was like, well, what would you do with $100 million? And we had these thought experiments all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Matt, you can't spend $100 million. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can. We go down and we're at like 78 million, and Matt has a plane, cars, houses, boats. I mean, we went through the whole nine. So I think the reason I want to interject is because I think if you did start from that place and say money's no object, what do you want your life to look like? I think you would find that it costs way less than what you think.
It really does.
Way less.
It really does.
I mean, to get a maid to clean up some things, to get lawn care, to get chefs, we were looking at planes. Matt's talking about getting his pilot's license, and we're talking about private air travel, and it's not that bad.
It's really not. So, and it goes back to what's important to you, right?
Yes.
But it was funny. A lot of people, I want to be a billionaire. I do not want to be a billionaire.
No.
I don't. Because I know what it takes to get there. And I'm not willing to sacrifice it.
Yes.
I'm just not.
Yep.
And so why would I ever set that goal when I know I'm not willing to do what it takes? Because what it takes to be a billionaire is not have a family, not have one you spend any time with.
Yep.
You're not having any friends. You're not enjoying a whole hell of a lot to get there.
Well, and look
And
at
I'm just
Bezos.
I'm not willing to do that.
He might be a fantastic person. I've never met the guy. He delivers a lot of packages for Matt and I. But that's an inside joke there. Sorry, Shanna. He might be a great person, but he's vilified because he has so much money.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be, like you say, the sacrifices, if you think, one of the things I forgot to say earlier, when you're sitting in your job or you're sitting there making goals on what you want things to look like, talk to people who are doing what you want to be doing. If you're in a job and you want to be a boss, your boss, ask him how long it took him or her to get there.
Yeah.
See how many years they had to work. See how many different roles they had to have. And if it's 15 years on average for all those team leads to get that job, that's what you're probably going to have to put in. Mm-hmm. If the billionaires have to spend 15, 20 years of their life neglecting all their family and personal stuff, that's probably what you're going to have to do.
It's funny. I was, my buddy's coming in at the end of the month from Dallas. Mm-hmm. Had a successful real estate brokerage, sold it, made a ton of money. One of the most successful real estate agents in the country, like ever.
Yeah.
And he's got a son who's in his 20s.
I love this.
And he does not want him, who works in his business, he does not want him to do that. He doesn't want him to take it over. And I asked him why. And he's like, I was not around because I was building my business too much. And
he
I don't want that for him.
Please tell. I mean, you don't have to give names and stuff, but tell how successful this guy was. This is
So-
not just he's at your neighborhood brokerage and he's a
Yeah,
top
so
dog.
he was the brokerage that he was at. Just for anonymity purposes, it's one of the big box ones you've heard of.
You would immediately know the
Yes.
name.
He was top 3 in North America, so Mexico, Canada and US. Top 3, I think there's like 45,000 agents or something in that world. Top 3, 9 years in a row. Nobody in the company's history had ever been top 3 more than twice, and they never did it consecutively. He did it 9 years in a row. So to say this guy ran a successful brokerage is an understatement.
And knew this dude has
Dialed in.
Yeah.
So, but he also now, looking back, he knows what it took to get there because
Yes.
he did it.
Yes.
And he doesn't want that for his kid.
That's kind of my point is that's a perfect example of that, man, because and I don't know if it was Freakonomics or one of the guys that did that, Stephen Dubner, one of them, they talk about how hard it is for our mammalian brain to project what we would feel or be like in the future. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. You don't know. You think the shiny car is going to bring you this level of success.
Yeah.
You think the new house. You think, the nice watch or the fancy dinner. And we cannot, it's just not in our whatever, how many million-year-old brain to be able to interpret that.
Yep.
And it's, I don't want anybody to get to their end where they're trying to go and realize that the ladder's against the wrong wall.
Yeah.
That would be worse than not being able
Right.
to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
And look, don't get me wrong. Like, would I like to have a fancy car and apps? Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that. But
Yes.
it's not what it's about for me.
No.
And look, some people are into cars. Like, that's their thing.
Yeah.
That's great. I love to travel, right? I probably spend more on travel, and some people are like, why would you do that? But then there's also people who the thing is their cars, and I'm like, how the hell do you justify spending that kind of money on a car,
Yep.
right? It doesn't matter, right? Everybody has their thing.
Yes.
And what people get so caught up into is they buy the fancy car because they think that's what everybody thinks, and they're like, oh, well, this is a nice car, and it'll make me feel better because it made so and so down the street feel better. But like, if it's not your thing, and there's very few people who really are about cars. My old business partner, he legit, that's his thing.
Yeah.
That is his thing,
Yeah.
right? And so for him, he's going to get much more enjoyment out of a nice car than I am.
Yeah.
Because he appreciates the actual mechanics and the machinery of what that is, and I don't.
Well, and we were just talking about this the other day that you have to have your own thing. So just
Yeah.
like what Matt talks about, you want to spend your money on something.
Yeah.
Like Matt said, he's not going to spend his money on cars. He likes travel. Everybody's got their thing, but you shouldn't spend that if you have your thing and you're budgeting and doing the right cash flow statements or whatever for your business or personal life. As long as you're doing that, you shouldn't feel guilty spending it.
Hell no.
And you said that's something you struggle with your mentor said that you struggle with
Celebrations. Yeah, because it's, I don't know, I just struggle with that. One thing I will tell you is...
Sorry, we do this
cut
live.
up, yeah. One thing I'll tell you is, I'm a big believer, this is something I tell people all the time, is, look, it's okay to spend money on stupid stuff,
Yeah.
right? Just do it in a smart way.
100%.
Right? So like, for instance, you want to buy a fancy car, it's going to cost you $1,500 a month. Go buy 3 rental properties at cash flow $500 a month first, then celebrate by buying that car and let the cash flow pay for the car.
I thought
Right.
that was such a brilliant thing when
And
we
it's-
talk about cash flow paying for your luxuries
Well,
or
because-
assets paying for your luxuries.
Because listen, nobody outside of a very, very small amount of people, and I don't even recommend this because I don't think it's the way to live life. There's very few people who can actually not spend money on stupid stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a thing.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly what you said. Yeah. Just
And
what you're
so
saying.
don't feel guilty about it. Just, if you only have $1,500 clear every month and you're not saving any money, don't go buy a car that costs $1,500.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you could buy the damn thing 8 times over, live your life.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah, I always used to think after reading some of the Millionaire Next Door stuff that, the average millionaire or the car of the average millionaire is like a Toyota or something or a
Yeah.
Honda. And I thought, and Warren Buffett comes up a lot too, like we ought to celebrate him for driving a 50-year-old Cadillac.
Yeah.
If I had $50 billion, it is a rounding error to not buy
a Ferrari.
Bentley,
Yeah.
Ferrari, Porsche, whatever.
Yeah.
Why would you care about driving the old car? But his thing is, that's like what he enjoys.
Yeah.
We all think he's a tight ass, but he actually enjoys not spending money. That's his thing.
It's like our good buddy. He legit gets enjoyment out of not spending money.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walmart closed will not update anything, but the guy is worth more than us combined.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just when you think about that, I guess the
Everybody has their thing.
everybody's got their thing, so don't base your goals off of what Instagram is doing either.
That's the thing. Like in the business owner world, right? A lot of my friends that own businesses, they talk about how much they work, and I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to get wrapped up in that. Oh, I'm not working enough. I'm like, no, like the whole point of taking this risk and doing this is to have the life that
Yes.
I want. It's not to have the job that I want.
Yeah.
It's to have the life that I want.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Sometimes I wake up and I want to sit on my ass and play video games all day. And then that's what I'm going to do.
What's your screen name? No, I'm just kidding. What's your
Deuteronomy Manfred.
There you guys got to hit up Matt.
Yeah. That's my thing, right?
And I agree. I think one thing that I had to separate, and I know we're getting close on time here, one thing I had to separate that I really struggled with being grown up in a blue collar family is you worked hard for things.
Yes.
Like I watched my dad work hard for money. He was a contractor,
Mm-hmm.
worked there 40 years. My grandpa worked hard for money, worked his whole life until he died. And that was just something you did.
Yep.
If you didn't work hard, you were a bum.
Yeah.
And in my little brain, I thought, well, if I want money, I have to work hard. That is the hardest thing to separate.
Well, it's your conditioning.
It is.
Right?
And I think they do it a lot, right? Because it's the old, you go to job,
That's
you
how
work
you did
40
it.
hours, and you get a salary.
Yep.
And it's like, but that is so different from actual wealth.
Yes.
When you buy a rental property or have a business, you can work 40 hours or less, and that is going to make money whether you want it to or not.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm leaving to travel. Today's a Monday. I'm leaving tomorrow on a Tuesday. I'm going to be gone all week traveling with the family. If I come back and we did not buy multiple houses while I was gone,
Perfect
there's
example.
going to be problems.
Yeah.
Like, I expect that to happen. I expect it to run when I'm not here. Frankly, I expect it to run better when I'm not here because I just get in the way a lot of times.
Exactly, and it's a different skill set.
Yeah.
And I've heard it's a different skill set making money and keeping money.
Oh,
and it
yeah.
is hard because once you get to a certain level, your effort, like you say, is actually counterproductive, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like you're more involved. I mean, I know some of the issues you've had in the past with the business
Yeah.
partners and stuff is getting too involved.
Yeah, we have before, for sure. And it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's hard to step away because we think that effort applied equals a more income, and it does not at all.
Yeah. A lot of times it can slow things down.
I think we've covered a lot of stuff, Matt. I know we're on kind of a time crunch. Is there anything we should, I say reveal. Is there anything you want to talk about before it's end of the year?
Yeah, so I imagine a lot of your audience is wanting to, wanting to invest in real estate.
Yes.
I tell you this, if you have a job, start doing it before you quit your job. Just trust me.
Yep.
If I could go back and do that, that's 100% what I would have done.
Less stress.
Yes, absolutely do that. You will thank me in 15 years.
Your hairline will thank you.
Probably not even that long. And two, like don't be afraid to design your life the way you want. Like if you want to blow a bunch of money every month on stupid stuff, then figure out how to do it.
Get the number. I think that's a big thing. Get the number of what you want to spend. You want to have this car, that's going to cost me $1,000 a month. Get that.
You want to fly first class once a month with the family, put it in there.
Yep, get the number. Get the number.
Yep. And then start building something that will cover that.
Yep.
And try to do it in a manner where it's not directly related to the number of hours you put in the office.
Yep.
Right?
I agree.
And so really the only way to do that is invest or start a business that has a system and a process and a team that can do that for you, right?
And that's not just anecdotal, meaning that's just Matt and I's experience. If you look at the people who have a net worth of more than $5 million, 95% of them are business owners.
I did not know that.
I
saw one that was like 91% of people who are millionaires became millionaires through real estate.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who invest, but the 5 millionaire and above is 95% are business owners.
That makes sense.
Because you can't save your way.
No, you can't.
You can't do it. You have to have your money working for you.
The only way you can do that is to have a W-2 job where you're making $500,000 a year plus.
Exactly. And then you can't.
And living off of 50 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which we had a friend who did that.
Yeah, we did. And now he's not 40 and he manages his investments for work.
Yeah.
That's his job.
But is very low spender and has made some very prudent investments.
Yep. Very sharp.
Is there any So I think we've given some good tips on what for things for people to do next year. Is there anything else you want to leave your contact or mention anything about?
Just put it in the video comments.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if people, I guess you're looking for, or if my audience can help you at all, it would be the people who what is your what is your thing? If out of all these people we're talking to, who should be reaching out and contacting you?
I mean, I don't know. You always get on me about being too free with my time, but like I try to help. One of our core values is make an impact, and that just is something that makes me happy to do. So if somebody wants to reach out, they can reach out. I'm better about if it's something I don't have time for, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just I'm always looking to meet new people, and so if I can help in some way and impact your life in some way, I'm happy to do it. If I can't, I can't.
Yeah.
I think the more I do that, the more it comes back to me. So
I'm a big believer in that as well, Matt.
Yeah.
Is there anything my audience can do just to help you out and what you're focusing on?
Make some goals for yourself and achieve them.
Okay.
You know, that's what I want them to do.
Yeah.
And if I can help in some way with that, I will.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we do what we do. That's why we sit here and record stuff.
Yeah.
That's why we keep putting out content. I mean, Matt does a lot for the community as well. We just finished a fundraiser. We're going to be around a long time. We're talking about building businesses for a while. We're not talking about something to do just
Flash in the
overnight.
pan,
Yeah, exactly. So reach out to Matt. I'll put some of his information
Yeah.
below. Again, as always, if you guys need anything from me, feel free to reach out via email, text, phone, whatever, and we'll do the best we can to help you guys, continue on a real estate journey, whether that's buy your first house, next house,
Yeah.
or maybe just set a big, audacious, hairy goal, whatever the hell they call them,
Make it. Cameron's giving me shit because Cameron thinks my goal for the business next year is too big.
Oh,
He thinks it's too big.
what is it?
And how did my team react when I gave it to him today?
Remember I was talking about earlier, you set a goal that's so far out there that's crazy and you're not motivated?
Been there.
His was almost perfect. I mean, I'd say on the higher end, but it was great, motivating for the team.
It's a push goal.
But it's
and when we told the team, they're like, okay, so what happens if we do that plus
Yeah.
a big chunk? And I'm like,
I shot too low,
yeah. I'm like, everybody's doing well.
You guys set big goals, kick ass in 2021. We'll put this video out. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, Matt will send to house buyers. We'll reach out to me and we'll help out. Thanks, guys. Catch you.